Wonderful. Go ahead and get my February sandbox open. Sweet. Okay, we are here. So, hi, everybody. Welcome to Pro NoCoders Office Hours, episode 222. I am your host, Cameron, and I'm here with Alexandria, Chase, Harsha, Ritesh, and Jonathan. Before we get started, if this is your first time tuning in, we do these office hours 6 times per week, and we invite all of our members onto Zoom so they can ask basically any bubble questions they want. We can't promise answers, but we do promise you won't suffer alone, and we get it right most of the time. So we'll start with who got here first. I have it in the order of Alexandria, then Chase. We'll start with Alexandria first. What is your question today?
Okay, so I need some help with messaging. So I've created a messaging portal within my marketplace platform. And I had set it up with well, I'll show you guys the messaging and the threads, but it's not saving. And so I'm having a bit of internal confusion of how do I actually create. Yeah, I can show it. It's probably better.
Yeah, go ahead and stream it. Yeah. I'll stop sharing for you.
Let me find it. Please ignore the very full.
Also, I wanted to say hi to Ben, Lachlan. You guys both joined. How you guys doing?
Hey.
Welcome, welcome.
Thanks, Cameron. Doing well. How are you?
Doing A-OK myself. Thanks for asking. Glad we got a full office hours, it looks like. Got a bunch of people in here.
Excited to hear all the questions.
Yeah. And it looks like Alexandria disappeared on us. Is she still here?
No, I must have dropped out.
Huh, must have. Okay.
Click to share screen and must have clicked exit.
Interesting. Yeah, no worries. We will probably just pick up right where we left off when she joins back. But in the meantime, Chase, we had you next.
Yeah, so Tanya actually told me I should jump into this meeting and see if I thought she was going to be on here, but I'm working with I'm trying to export data from my database using Eli's I forget the exact name of the plugin, and he actually helped me build it to where it was working. But now when I do a large amount of data, I get a very specific error message from Bubble.
Gotcha. Okay.
Sure. I
Yeah,
have
go
a
ahead.
screenshot of it. I don't know how to share my screen here. Okay. I don't know if you can see that, but it's so the entire process ran through. There was probably over 5,000 records that were being exported, and it went through the entire list. Otherwise, in the top portion where I'm pointing here, you would see a countdown of additional records that needed to be pulled. So when it goes to actually deliver the export, I get this error. Plugin action inputs too large, should be less than 6 megabytes.
Yikes. Okay. And so this, you were using other platforms or other plugins as well. And I imagine you got something pretty similar where it said that you couldn't export it because it was too large.
So I've only ever used the one plugin to do this export. And it works on a decent amount of data, but whenever I try to export everything, for some reason it won't. It just won't.
Shoot, and that really stinks because that is sort of specific to Eli, and the fact that he made that plugin definitely has that insight to be able to provide. And so what I would say, because obviously I want to help you with this, if we can't partition the data that we're exporting and have it sort of 1 to 100, then 100 to 200, and do it in sequential, sort of like that.
Which is what we do, actually.
Is that what you do?
Yeah, it takes it in 500 bits or pieces of data at a time. So it's an entire.
Gotcha. And
that's how he helped me with that portion of it, because I was originally trying to just turn it all into a JSON file.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
5,000 records at once, and it wouldn't do it. So that's when he was like, no, you got to do a recursive. And I originally did it with 1,000 at a time. And then I was getting that message, and it was recommended to me to drop it from 1,000 to like 500 or less. And I'm still just getting that message. So
And the way that it exports, is it looking at like, do you have multiple records where we are breaking it up? So one record would have 100 through 5 or 0 through 500. The second record would have 500 through 1,000, or how does that look?
yeah, let me go
And then you
to
sort of like merge them all together to export it. Is it?
yes. So let me go to the backend workflow so you can
Yeah.
see. It's running kind of sluggish. Okay, so let's say we do an export of policies and clients, and we include commission data. So it pulls in the original search, the JSON file, as well as the remaining list of policies. So that's what it looks like.
Gotcha.
then-
Okay.
And it just keeps doing that until the list gets to, obviously, if it's greater than or equal to 500, it keeps running it. Less than 500, but greater than 0, runs this one more time. And then finally, it's supposed to deliver the export. And then that's where I get that error message that the 6 megabytes over 6 megabytes.
Shoot. Yeah, that really stinks. And the screenshot said it was your input actions, correct? Over 6 megabytes.
I think this one said plugin action inputs too large. Yeah.
So we're giving it too much data for it to export at once is what it seems to me as the main issue.
Yeah, but at that point, the export is actually done through Bubble. It's just an email. You get the link to the file that's like an Amazon, stored on Amazon's database, I guess.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I'm not using a separate plugin for the actual exporting or the sending of the data anyway.
Huh. Dang. Okay.
Right.
And so-
Deliver export. So once this is scheduled, where I guess maybe it could be happening in here.
The file delimiter. Okay. We're just passing in that content.
We're passing in the JSON file from the recursive workflow,
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
creating the CSV, and then different CSV names and whatnot depending on the type of export being done, and then sending an email with the attachment.
Gotcha. Yeah. Pretty straightforward from what I'm seeing here. So yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, you've done what I would have recommended, which would, of course, to partition out. It seems like you had set that up. You were saying already to split it up and make it to where it's not as crazy for the system to handle. And then when we export it, it's saying that those input actions are just too large.
Yeah.
Oh,
which
goodness.
leads me to I mean, is it possible that there's just a limit on the email? Does the email have a limit on the amount of data that could be sent?
Well, the email contains just a link. It doesn't contain the zip
Okay,
file,
so-
does it?
No. So does I guess Amazon's database have a limit on what we can upload to it? Because that's essentially what's happening. It's being uploaded to their database and being stored there, right?
Yeah. I do know that there's, I mean, a huge limit, like you can upload up to like 5 terabytes at a time. I do know that with the AWS servers. So I don't think that that's going to be an issue here as is right now. I wonder if it's a bubble specific thing or if it's a plugin specific thing. Now, Eli had said that in the past, though, he didn't run into this. He was able to export more than.
Yeah, that's what he told me when we had our one-on-one, that he's done hundreds of thousands of, records.
Hundreds of thousands. Okay, so this should be able to handle it in which case. And so
Yeah.
the data size is probably not too big. You're just exporting.
It's a little, I think it's a little over 6,000.
6,000 megs
6,000
or records.
records. Yeah. I don't know
Okay.
what that equates to in actual, data. I'd
Probably a little bit more than 6 megabytes here, as it's saying, unfortunately.
yeah. Yeah, I'm
Now,
sure.
the thing is, had you been able to test this with lesser data? And
Yeah, and it
so it
works.
does work.
Yeah, I can do like a simple, specifically just. And then do that. She doesn't have a lot of. Yeah, it should come through pretty quick.
And then it comes through. Okay. So it really is just the amount of data. I'm going to be honest. I'd love to be able to actually sit down and fix this for you. Eli's going to have more information about it, especially if you had that one-on-one with him. It's his plugin. I wish I
Yeah.
had an answer for you. I genuinely do. We've exercised what I would have thought would have been the solution, which would have been to partition that so it doesn't, kill its processor there. But
The only thing I could think to do is to partition it down even smaller, but I would think 500 is small enough.
yeah, no, 500. I did that native bubble with a native or with a not Eli's CSV plugin. I forget which one it was, but it worked in itself, which is 500. So we can definitely ping Eli and see what he thinks about that, though. That's going to be my suggestion for now, at least.
Okay.
Super sorry about that. I wish I had a better answer for you. I know that's sort of a letdown, but if anybody has the solution, it would be that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I sent him an email about it a while ago, and I just haven't heard anything from him.
Did you ping him in Slack?
No, Eli, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. No, I'm not on Slack. Yeah, the file came through.
Oh, yeah. So the file did work for you.
Yeah.
Huh.
I know Tanya did mention that she had a meeting with him today, that she was going to say something to him about it. So I'll just reach back out to her and see if she had a chance to talk to him.
Definitely super sorry about that. Yeah. See what you can find. And then I would also be interested in the answer, though. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
You as well. Alexandria is back. She disappeared, but she's back. We're going to hop back to her. And then after that, we're going to be going back to Harsha and Ritesh.
Hi.
But hey, welcome.
All right. I don't know what happened. And then I presented my question and thought I was still online. I'm like, oh no, I broke Cameron. He doesn't know.
Hey, you disappeared.
Okay. So
All right,
I'm
you're
gonna
here.
And
Oh,
it
yeah.
helped me to babble my way through in order to, okay, here we go. So my question is about messaging.
Okay.
So I had set up in the back end and then I tried to replicate it and of course broke it. So here I have messages where it has message content, the thread and the user. And then I have all threads, which is supposed to track the user to pull it so that in our messaging portal, it will have the current message and then the user profile, right? So this works. It's just not tracking the thread. So that's kind of the first item, right? Because the thread's supposed to be here. And then the second is I'm trying to make sure that when, so this is basically it's marketplace. So this is the profile of the person you'd be on. So let's say it's Cameron, and then I should be able to send a direct message. So these messages are going through, but it's not tracking the thread. So I want to make sure that the thread needs to keep it to where Cameron and I can message back and forth and it's a clear message between us. And then if I message, someone else like Dave Jr. or something, that it stays there. So I'll show you what I have set up in the workflow of both, I guess.
And so I guess before that, when we create a thread or we create a message, where is the thread created?
It's in, it's a data type.
Okay.
Well, or where it's supposed to create. So I have it as a data type. The thing is, it won't let me pull it as a data type.
Oh, what?
So thread is here, but for
Okay.
some reason so I have to go through messages and then to thread. And that might be why it's not connecting, because here it's new messages. This is thread. So it's supposed to be thread. And it's not letting me connect it to just thread as a data type. So then I was using current users messages thread because it's not showing up.
Okay.
If you type it correct, it's not
Now,
showing up as thread.
Had you
That's the-
used this repeating groups thread? Because if that repeating group has the data source and we're saying that it's a thread, then it should be able to see it as this thread, if that makes any sense.
So
So repeating group
So this-
messages.
add repeating group thread.
Okay, what
First,
about
I'll simple thing. Well, maybe as like first start.
that would be, we'd be looking at an array of these items and it would get pretty messy pretty fast. I don't think that's going to be what we're going to want to be doing here. But the thread is going to be, so when we create a message, we assign it a thread value, or the thread is created in this case when we create a new message, right?
Yeah.
And that's what
Or
we're trying to
maybe
do right now.
Yeah, maybe I have to create a thread.
Yeah, so you could put that before creating the message. It would be create a thread in this case. And then when we create a new message, thread equals a result of step one.
Create a or
And
maybe
we'd be
after-
adding the current user to this thread. And so we can always modify the user as well. We can add a list where the current user, or basically from the users of the message. So we can store what users are in that message, then pass it to the thread. But I do think that one of the better ways to do this would probably create the thread first and then create the message. And the reason being is just because, you know, when you're in your phone app and you create, when you don't even send a message to someone, you've in essence instantiated a thread. So that thread's then created, and then we add messages to that thread.
So then user would still be current user, and then thread would be result of create a new thread.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I would do. So now
So-
hopefully when you do create a message, it then shows up in that.
Let me fix this one real quick. And then just test, and then of course it's like always the most simple things in Bubble. You're like, why didn't I think about that? So here I would have to create a thread too. Okay, so
Okay. And then, yeah, that
Let-
should work. Fingers crossed.
let me run it as to keep those.
And then, so we're adding only one user currently in this case as the thread owner, I guess. Is that right? Or are we trying to have the recipients as well show up in the thread?
I think the recipients show up as well. Nope. That
Okay.
didn't work. So let's check the login as well. If I do, let me run it and see if.
And then one thing, if you don't mind, while it's loading, click on the step by step for us so we can see what happens step by step when we click that send button.
Okay, so now it's showing up here in threads.
Okay.
Um,
So it does look like it does create that thread.
yeah.
And
that
so
did
click
work.
run next. Okay. So we can see
Add
that
current.
a new thread did populate there on the left-hand side.
And then it made a message content. So that's the thing. Message content was empty.
Now, I don't believe
So I
on the
need to-
second instance we had typed anything though, did we? Or did I not see that?
We didn't actually.
Okay, okay.
So let me see of the other one, which is I wanted to run where it's sending the message specifically to that person that we wanted to do. Whereas basically where it will pull that. Wait. Yeah. Here. This should message pop up. It still creates a thread. Adds the. So that should have worked on the second one.
It looks like, yeah, based on the fact that it went over, create a new thread and showed us that it was going to do that. It should be working here.
Let me see. Okay, it's just not doing the user, but I think also that's because.
Is the user a current user? Is the user a user record? Is the user a text? What do you have it set as?
I think user ID. I think it's also make changes. That's what I need to delete. Because I was like making changes thinking that that would fix it.
Hmm.
User is just current user, and user is.
Oh, yeah. Evaluates to a user. So it should just be current user is, yeah.
I think that was it. So let's see. We'll run it as another user. And then.
Go ahead and refresh that
it's
data.
reading,
Oh, is that in, yeah, we just did that, huh?
yeah,
Okay.
maybe.
What I like to do is use that step-by-step tool. And then when it says create, say, a new thread, we're actually able to hover over the user and see what it evaluates to. And it might be evaluating to empty.
Oh, ID. It doesn't have the name of the user, which is why, because no, maybe. Because it is creating by, like, this is the user ID and the user. I think it's just not pulling the user name.
So go back, and this is the pop-up one. This is for the whichever one this pertains to. Do you mind going to that workflow?
Yeah.
Okay, so user, add current user. And then the message, now remind me, I do apologize. In the message, did it show that the user was created? User equals current user. Did it show that?
Let's go back to messages. No, it's not user either.
Okay, no worries. A little interested me at no worries. So let's go back to that workflow.
And the interesting thing here actually is that this user, so these are member users and this is product user. So it's pulling the name when it's directly the product, but not when it's the member, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Basically,
So you have
my marketplace is hotels and then the users. And so this is a hotel. So it's pulling the name, but not the thread, but that was before. But now these are all members. So if I go to all users, I was using these users, which are member users versus these users.
Gotcha. Okay. Go to the workflow for me again, if you don't mind. And actually, let's, instead of doing that, go back to the where we were previewing it, and let's do a step-by-step and just hover over the user when we're actually at that spot to see what is being passed through.
Okay.
And then my next suggestion would be, instead of add list, perhaps set list as initially. And setting it basically does exactly what it sounds like. It just instantiates that to include whichever value we're passing through. So very similar to add, but typically set overrides the data that would be there.
Okay.
But if we're just creating it on a one-off, then I don't think we'd run into any issues. But cool, yeah, step by step, let's type our message out and send it. And then on the first step, when we create a thread, let's see what the user is, and we'll be able to hover over that user. All right, yeah, next step. Perfect. So current user.
Click it.
Yeah, click that, and then it evaluates to that, which is.
Oh, because it's all empty. Oh, because it's not pulling.
Well, it should be taking
so it is
the email in this case. So we should be saying at least admin@blackbookseries.com. Or at least the unique IDs since we're passing in a user record.
Yeah, and I think it actually and it's loading. I think it actually did pull the email. It's just not pulling the name, like the user, the manual.
Well, we'd be pulling either the email or in this case, the unique ID, since we're passing in a user record and we're selecting this user, the current user. Now, I do want to make sure that we do want the current page user. So the one sending the message, we want to put as the user. Is that the user of the receiving side? The recipient.
The one sending the message is the user, and then on the other side when they reply. So yeah, the one sending the message should be the user that it's tracking.
Okay. So interestingly enough, it is saying that the user, we are adding a current user. And then under the thread, when we go to the record that we have set up under bubble, we go back to the data and then go to the record for that. Go to data types. And it's a list of users. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It's a thread. We'd probably run into many more than just one. That makes sense. Okay, cool. I want to see if adding or if setting the list instead changes anything for us.
Okay, so in the here it would be setting list of users.
Yeah, so user set. And then current user, and then we'd be looking for, let's try current user's email.
What is it now?
It doesn't want us to set the list. Okay.
Maybe current unique ID. Not let it.
No, because we're passing in just a single user and it's looking for a list. Okay. Click on the set list again for me. And I guess we are really just going to be adding in this case, since we're not passing in multiple items, we're only passing in one, in this case, just the current user. We would do add for right now.
Just add, not add list.
Yeah. And then current, just regular current user. Okay, interesting. And then when we create a new message, it equals the current user as well. And it's not passing through when we create the thread.
So maybe I should add.
Last thing that I would think of would be privacy rules. Have we changed any of the privacy rules? Do you have certain privacy rules set up for like an admin is able to have this data changed versus a regular user or anything of the sort? Or is it pretty much vanilla? We didn't change anything.
I haven't really changed anything. Where was it?
Go to data. And then privacy.
Let's see, there might be a user with thread, publicly visible, user when logged in.
User is logged in. User should match this rule. We can view, we can search. Okay, and then threads as well. Let's go to threads there.
Okay. Thread. Nope, it doesn't have anything on thread and it doesn't have anything on messages. So they're just open.
It's a little backwards, a little interesting for sure. Okay, so no privacy rules. We don't have that set. We're adding one user to a list. So we're going to select add in this case. We've gone through the debugger. We see that it's actually passing in that user.
Should I maybe create where it also like add to a thread the username? And so not only does it add the user, but also the name, because it seems like it is tracking it. It's just when we look at the data.
Yeah, one of the things that I would do is
email, but it's not the name. So it's hard to know. Like,
yeah, so we'll be able to eventually pass the users in. I'm confident in that, but I would have something set. I would have some like one record perhaps where it says sender in this case, and then we'd pass in just the current user. It's not a list, just a singular item. We'll pass in the user, and then we'll be able to reference then all of the messages or threads rather that a user has created using just that. Yeah, just that user type.
And it's just one, right? It's not a list.
Yeah, so I would still use the user, not a text.
Okay.
And yeah, it's not a list. It's just going to be one person there.
Okay.
Now I'm confident though, when we pass in this next value, it should just be one user and it will work. So we're going to want to do sender.
Oh, sorry. Current user.
No worries.
right? Current user.
Yep, exactly that. Yep.
So let's run it as someone who run it as info.
And we could take the step by or the run next off as well. We can go just a regular run or normal. You can also refresh data in the bottom left-hand corner, so you don't have to reload bubble every time. It just reloads that database, those records.
Where are my threads? Thread.
Okay, everybody in unison is scratching their head right now.
Let's look at like, so the thread is, it's still showing, but like let's see if the messages are still. So it is technically, it's just not now on the thread. It's not. I think it's just the name actually of the user, because like the email is here. I think it's just the user doesn't have a name, so it's hard to identify, but it is there. Like it's created by here. I can see who that is. I just don't know what name that is.
It does say in that user slot, it does say first name, perhaps. Is there a record that you have where they have a first name where we'd be able to try? And also we'll end up moving on. I know you guys have been waiting so patiently, Harsha and Ritesh. We'll get to you in just a second, I promise.
I think it's because here it's membership profiles is how I made users versus having member users.
Okay. And there's 8 additional fields here. When you click on one of those records, does it have the first and last name? Because I can see, the way that the data was set up.
First name, yeah, last name.
Okay. And we just used this email, didn't we? info@gmail.com. Okay.
Yeah, that was.
And the fact that it's not passing through is pretty interesting. I believe that the way that the record's set up, we should just be able to pass the user itself. We shouldn't have to worry about there being a first or a last name. When we pass in the user ID there would show up just similar to how the thread is saved as a thread. And when you click on message, you're able to see the thread and it's a unique ID. So we should be experiencing something pretty similar here. I do want to revisit this with you. At least we got the thread working. So
the message is working. It's just like identifying the user, but I think that's it's pretty solid for now. So I'm okay with continuing on to other people.
Cool. Yeah. And we'll circle back around if we have time, definitely. And I'll dedicate some time to helping out with that for sure. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks.
Absolutely. All right. So I know that Harsha and Ritesh were here first. Are you guys together today, or are you guys going to be doing individual questions?
No, Sujitra will be asking on our behalf.
Okay. Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here I have a track database here. So each users will enter their track values every day.
Okay.
So what I want is here on the weekly basis, I want to send an email to the management of each person's track values. So like how I can send on a weekly basis, and
definitely.
and the body, how I can put this one.
So what we're going to want to do to have something reoccurring every week is we're going to want to create a recursive workflow. Ultimately, what this is going to do is it's going to basically cycle through. First off, we have to cycle through all the users that we're going to be sending these emails to. So what we would do is we'd set up a recursive workflow on the back end that the parameters that we would send would be the users in this case. And we'd send in a list of all of these users. And then what would happen is we'd take the first item out of this list of users. So just one user at a time, basically. And then we'd send them this information. And you said you wanted it to be specific to that person, correct?
Oh, here I'm explicitly mentioning first person, second person.
Okay, yeah. So the constraints we would add for search for track values in this case, we would do a search for, then And what would end up happening is on the backend workflow, since we're passing in a list of users, Bubble knows those list of users and the information unique to each individual user. So when we want it to be for that person, we'd say do a search for track value. Let's say for track values, do a search and current user equals user, or user first item in this case. And so if you'd like, we can go ahead and set up a recursive workflow, at least to go ahead and have it scheduled so it sends weekly. And to do that, we're going to go to the backend workflows in this case on your page.
Yeah.
Cool, perfect. Yep. New API workflow.
New.
Okay. Yeah, not the recurrent one. Just a new API workflow.
Okay.
Cool. I guess send email, perhaps. Or whatever you're comfortable with, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so as a parameter, we're going to add user in this case. And it's going to be a user. Perfect. It is a list array. Cool. And the action that we'd be performing here would be sending him an email. So we'll just send an email. Yep. Cool. And in this dynamic field, we would, and of course you can manually type it to test, but we would insert dynamic constant here in this case. Since it's going, what we're doing is we're passing in. Oh, is this not supposed to be? Okay.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a one email. So I mean management.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Sweet. If it's going just there, that's totally fine. Now, then I may have misunderstood. I just want to make sure. We do want an individual email for each person, though. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Then this is still the other way to do it. Perfect. Not a problem. So in this case, this data here, sender name, subject, this is going to be maybe really it's the body as well included. This is all going to be dynamic.
Yeah. Sender name from
sender
views.
name yeah, that doesn't really need to be dynamic. No, but the subject and the body perhaps may want to be well, the subject may, but the body will especially be dynamic since it's going to be pertaining to each individual. So what you would do here is let's just insert one of the values that you want this this management to get. So what's something that you want to send
Okay, in this management, they can see table wise. I mean, first table should be for first one user, and the second one should be second user, so on and so on.
Yep, absolutely. What's some of the data that we're going to be sending though? So like the metrics in this case, I just want to send one metric right now to the management because I want to go through basically and make it dynamic as it pertains to that one user. So we do a search for
track values here.
Okay.
Oh, salesperson equals to.
Salesperson is going to equal the user in this case. So click there, and then that parameter value we're passing in. User, yep. And it's going to be first item. Perfect. Okay. So very simply, this email is going to send to management. It's going to send them the list of users, the first user on this list. It's going to send management their tracked values here, the number of sales. And so obviously you will do what you did previously. You'll add more in this body. But the next step in this recursive workflow is to basically schedule this workflow again. We want it to run again. So we're going to go ahead and click here to add an action, and we're going to schedule the send email workflow. So go to, I believe it's custom events, schedule API workflow. Perfect. Yep.
I want this to be on every day. I mean, week, Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll make sure that that happens. But right now, we still need to cycle through all of the users at once. So that's what this is going to be doing.
Yeah.
And then the user, so we need to subtract through all
Is
these.
it possible to send all their data in a single email?
Yeah, per individual, that's correct. You'd be able to do that. Are you asking if it's possible to send all of the users' data, every single one in one
a single email? Yes.
Well, I suppose you could. How many users are we going to be dealing with here?
For now, we have 4 users.
4 users, so not a whole bunch.
But in future, if someone add, then that should also be add here by default.
Okay. Yeah, so we could, of course, hard code it, or we could make it dynamic in this case. And I believe that we would do the each items. So when we're doing a search for that tracking, we do a search for each items, and then
yeah, each item's
number of sales. But this is what we're doing is we're searching for the values of the current user that's being passed through. So we'd want to remove that constraint, to my knowledge. We'd want it to pass everybody through. So when we do a search for track values, we just want to remove that constraint that we have currently set up. Now, the real question is the data that we're going to be sending through here. It's in a record, obviously. Are we storing all of the records throughout, all time, or because we want to only send the previous week's information, correct?
Yeah, I mean current week information, not previous one.
Okay. Yep. So the constraint, instead of because what we're doing is we're passing in a bunch of data, instead of the constraint being a user, the constraint should be a time in this case.
Okay, here.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should be like this one. I do this.
Yep, and then
no, I want weekly basis. Yeah, I'll do these conditions later.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. So as long as you have the conditions set, then we can move on to the weekly in this case, because we still need to reschedule this. This is what the recursive workflow is for. So the schedule API workflow send email, that second action, step 2 in this workflow, this is when we're going to say that we wanted to schedule in a week from now. So schedule date, current date time, it would be plus days 7. And so now what's going to end up happening is it's going to go through step 1. It's going to go ahead and send that email. It's going to send us all the data that we want. And then it says it's basically going to queue it up for in 7 days. Then it's going to send us another list or another email in this case. Now, the parameter that we're passing through user, I suppose it's not going to be super relevant if we're not going to be parsing through all the users. So we can go to send email. The API workflow, that original gray box up in the top left. Yep, that guy right there, yeah. And we could just remove user.
Remove user?
The trash can all the way to the right-hand side right there, right next to user.
I mean, I didn't get this one.
Yeah, so move your mouse to the right just a little bit, and you'll see a trash can there. We're just deleting user. So do you see where it says type user? So we're on the drop-down menu, right? So go back up to where it says type user. Yeah, we were just selecting that, right? Nope, wrong one. You see though on the right-hand side, that trash can? Yeah, now do the same to the other parameter, the other key. Because we're not passing anything in. We don't need a list of users. Nope, not that one. You don't need to mess with that. Just go to key user, type user, click that trash can to the right-hand side of it.
This one?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. Can I control your... You remember how you just deleted that new parameter you added? You just
Yes.
deleted that new parameter, that trash can right there on the right-hand side. Yeah, perfect. Right there. Now do that right there. Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. We did it. So now we want to schedule the API workflow to send email. So we have that going every single day. We're going to probably want to also set another conditional so this just doesn't keep on going repeatedly. Send email, send email. Well, actually, no, this should work. This should work fine if we're only clicking the button once. So if I had to guess, there's going to be a button that we click once to start this entire workflow off. And from that point
Okay,
on,
is it possible to run this workflow without clicking on any of the buttons?
yeah, sure. You could do a do when true on your front end. So when something is true, a condition's set, then it schedules an API workflow, and that API workflow would point to this API workflow, and it would do itself. So like when,
Okay.
let's say do when true, when like current date time equals blah, blah, blah. Now the only thing that I have, I guess a minor caveat with, it would be that when we're doing a do when true, it's typically only going to happen when the user is on the page. So that means if something like a time is correct, or if we want to set it up to where we're basing it off of time, you would have to be active on the website at that time for it to actually work. So we want to have it start where we don't have a condition is true and where we don't click on a button to get it started. That's a good question. I normally, with all my API workflows, I have a button that I click and then it starts. I don't know off the top of my head of having a way where it would start without clicking something or having some kind of trigger to get it to go. You may be able to do a database trigger in this case. So when the database changes, then you'd be able to actually have it do a schedule an API workflow. That's what I'm going to recommend. So it's a particular action where then when something in the database changes, and maybe you can schedule this to where something in the database changes again with another recursive workflow or another backend action that then the one we just set up triggers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we'll do that.
But yeah, so that's going to be how you're going to pass in the data, and that's how you're going to schedule it for 7 days out.
Yeah, okay. Got it.
Wonderful. Glad I can help you there. And if you have more questions, for sure, we'll circle back around. I'm going to hop over to Jonathan now, as he had joined after you guys.
Hey, Cameron.
Hey, Jonathan, how you doing?
Not too bad, thanks.
Good,
so at the moment, we're authenticating some of our users using Zeno, and I'd like to basically prompt our users to log in, say like every 2 hours or every few hours, so that we can ensure that that authentication hasn't expired. And I'm just wondering what the best way to do that inside of Bubble would be. And we're also signing into Bubble as well. So yeah, they would essentially need to go through the whole process again. Yep.
So we're just trying to basically define how long a Bubble user can stay logged in for. So when they log in, we just want them to be able to get logged out after 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to force them to log out? I'm sorry. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, before anything else, Xano, you guys, does it pass a refresh token? Does it give us that?
Lachlan?
No, so it's just a single auth token that we're using. So essentially what we want though is we just kind of want the Bubble user to log out first. And then because they're not authenticated, that obviously is going to push them back to login page. So they'll have to refresh and get a new auth token. So it's our way of refreshing essentially.
Sure. Gotcha. Yeah. So off the top of my head, the first thing that I would do, I'm a sucker for recursive workflows. I'd probably use a recursive workflow. So what I'd start is a timer of sorts, or at least some kind of tracker. So when a user logs in, a recursive workflow starts that in 2 hours, it logs this user out. And then prior to that, of course, we have a lot of ways that we can, show the user that this is going to happen. We could say even, at a certain time, something pops up on their screen based on a backend workflow.
It's a very basic portal. We expect the user to probably look at it for 5 to 10 minutes at most, and then they won't be using it again. So it's kind of just want them to log out and they probably won't be using it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm thinking about the way that like my bank works, where if I'm active or inactive for too long, it like a little pop-up says you're about to be signed out. And so you could, of course, have like a visual cue for that. But yeah, the way that it would start, or the way that I would do it, is when a user logs in, at that login action is when that I would start a recursive workflow on the back end to then log the user out after a certain amount of time. That's the way that I would approach that.
And how would I record like a timestamp to base, you know, the login session on?
Sure. Just use the current date time. And so I guess you could have like a record set up for the user.
Good point. Yep.
Like log in and then a specified log out that's calculated.
Like a session time. Yep.
Yep, exactly. And then when clock equals this, or when current date time equals this user's log out or expiration time, or whatever you want to call it, then the user would then log out.
Okay.
But yeah, so just looking on your screen here, I just want to make sure. So this is, we're setting up something on the back end, right?
Yeah. Just when you say recursive workflow, I don't think I quite understand like exactly what that entails.
You know what? Yeah, probably not a recursive workflow, but a back end workflow, just in general.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't think we're going to be doing anything recursively.
Okay, so I would have this trigger. I would have the backend workflow trigger on login. Essentially, is what you're saying.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. And how would I trigger those?
Cool. So
Like,
right here where the button sign in is clicked.
Yep.
Then we would click here to add an action, and the action would be to schedule a custom API. Schedule API workflow. That's what I mean.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And so then we'd want to create that backend workflow.
Yep. And that would be a new API workflow.
That's right. Yep. You can call that anything, maybe log out for simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So we have that stated, or that set. So then we'd go back to our login flow there. And the way that I'm thinking about this is we only want this, like what happens when someone clicks that button and their internet or something weird happens and they don't actually get pushed through all the way. So I would probably, and you don't have to, but I would put a conditional only when user is logged in. And this is assuming that the workflow runs flawlessly and that they are then logged in.
Yep.
But it'll ensure that, you know, we're only setting a logout time for logged in users.
Cool.
And then that schedule time will be current date time. Scheduled date. Yep.
Awesome.
Cool. And so now it's going to happen on that login when the user's logged in. I've done this before, or not something specific to this, but I have had conditional setup like that, expecting a user to be logged in and at the end say only when they're logged in. I haven't ran into an issue with it, so I'm assuming you probably won't either. But yeah, so now what we're going to want to do is, let's see. So obviously we want to track when the user is going to be forced to log out. And so we have two options here. We can track it individually, or we can just say, log the user out. And so what I would do is I'd have another API workflow actually. And this API workflow would be the actual logout flow.
Yep.
Click here to add an action, and we should be able to adjust the user. So log the user out. And so there's a couple different ways to do this. This is how I do it. I would go back to logout now, the original one that we created. And I would say schedule API logout flow. Ooh, trying to read, guys, never learned. It's tough. There we go. We're going to schedule the logout flow. And then scheduled date would be current date time plus 2 hours. That's what we're looking at.
Awesome.
And that there should work every single time. And it shouldn't work if the user is not logged in. So.
Okay, and would that independently work for each user? And the backend workflow would be able to understand that?
Yeah, so we do want to definitely pass in the user variable. Good question. So go back to your login flow. I just want to make sure that we are doing this, login flow, and then schedule API logout. So, and then, okay, cool. Yeah, that's right. We kept it really simple. And then go back to that backend API workflow for me again. Let's go logout flow. Yep. And log the user out, and the user that we're logging out. It's going to look at this as the current user in this case.
Cool.
So
and it'll independently work with the timestamp 2 hours from current date for each user. Yep.
I would love to assume that this is the case. I would test this with my logout flow. I would put less than 2 hours. I put like 20 seconds so we could do rapid testing.
And I think worst case, I could just put a record against the user in the database for the current time and just reference that in the backend workflow anyway for current user.
Yeah, you absolutely could.
Yeah, cool. No, I think that's pretty awesome. That's clear. Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Yeah, that should work. Like I said, I would change that logout flow time to like 20 seconds or whatever is easy enough
As
just
a
to test it.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, badass.
Oh, awesome. That's good. Thank you.
Absolutely. We have Ben. Ben, you were one of the last ones to join. You still there with us? Ben is not here. Okay, cool. No worries. We are going to go back to Alexandria. We're going to circle around and help you out. You still there with us?
I am. Hi. And I think I fixed it actually.
No
Just
way.
fooling around after.
Here are the details.
So sorry, I was just fixing something else. Okay. And then I did, let's see, let me share screen. Let me just finish that. Okay. What I did was just change the user to the email.
Wonderful. Can you show me that in the backend workflow? Or in the workflow rather? Might not be a backend workflow.
Let me go to. So what I just did was, and it's really just how the search comes up. Like I didn't change anything here.
Mhm.
I just went to when the data is displayed, that it would search. I changed the search field to just be the user, where the user pulls as email versus unique ID.
Okay.
Because there's like going to be two different names. And then the other thing that I added, which I have to finish adding into the database, was I added a yes, no. So basically when they sign up as a member, it will say, yes, they're a member. And then when they sign up as a hotel, it will say they sign up as a hotel. So then I can differentiate if the user is a hotel, which is like our product, or if it's a member, which is our paying customer. Because that's the thing with the users, like there's not really a way to make two different types of users. I just kind of, all of it's plugged into the same user, right? So it's
Gotcha,
like they'll have company name and hotel, and partnership, or they'll have, membership.
Gotcha.
So, if they're a member, they'll have a first name and a last name. But if they're a hotel, they're going to have hotel partner first name and like a profile.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think that's
some
just
data
like,
there.
yeah. So it's just like, it's going to be overlapping because it's just going to pull all of our users, because I don't know if there is a way to do a different type of user of like client versus like product for a marketplace. So I think that's just a quick fix of being able to see if they're a member or if they're a hotel.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to let you know that I would absolutely set a default value, leaving them empty, and then assigning logic or conditionals where either one is yes or no can break it. So on creation, I would set maybe both of them no, and then whatever onboarding you have, they're able to select if they're a yes or something of the sort. But I would just make sure that they're not left empty. That's all.
Okay, so yes or no. So default would be no, I guess.
Yeah, and that's going to be totally up to you on how the flow is set. It depends on if you're sending people unique links for signing up, or if it's going to be like an onboard flow or however.
So there's two different pages. So one signs up through like the membership portal, and then we have a different portal for the hotels.
Cool. Yeah, if there's two different flows, then specific to the member, they should be yes. And I would still set them perhaps both as no to start, but then where the sign up flow is, that is then going to turn that yes, no to a yes in this case.
Yeah, so this users. Is where, actually it's easier for me to do it from here. I have it where it automatically and make changes to current user. It on the first like click, it has it say yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that should work then. Just be mindful, of course, if you do have any logic already set up where, like, say this page is only available to people with hotels as yes, there may be some kind of finagling that you're going to have to do there, but I don't know if you have that. You said you just added that, right?
Yeah, I just added it now.
Okay, then yeah, disregard what I said. It's not a big deal. Cool.
Yeah. And I just think that's a better way, because also like in seeing the data, I need to make different views, but it was just kind of hard to be able to pull, you know, which is what, like I can see through company name, but then it feels like a lot of the data is missing. And since all the threads are going to be a user, I'll probably just, that way it like just pulls a yes or a no. So it's easier to see when yeah.
Trying to
I
also
just need
think
to make
about
a
the
new view.
user, because the threads are going to be more than just one user in this case. So we're going to be adding multiple. And there's two ways that you can do that. Well, I mean, honestly, I bet there's probably more than that. Where when the user is created, of course, the first action is we're adding the user, the current user. And then you could also add a second action. So after that message has sent, then the next user that we add is the person that we sent this message to, if that makes sense. So we'd have two different steps where we'd be modifying the thread. Yeah, so perhaps after or before create a notification, we make changes to the thread. Yeah, result of, well, yeah, you'd be able to do that though. We'd be, because we're changing result of step one.
Oh, okay.
And so then we're going to also add under user, the person that we're sending this to.
So current page hotel, I guess. Yeah. Can I get their user? Yeah. Okay.
Cool. And so, yeah, now that thread will have two contacts, the sender and then the receiver.
Okay. Okay. And then just to double check, since I have you
Yeah, absolutely.
on the login page with the portal,
Mhm.
it's set up well where it's going to pull the information, right? So when they log in, it should be pulling current user messages, search for messages, current users thread, current users messages, I guess.
We could also do a thread equals do a search for thread where the parameter is the user equals current user, or where the sender is current user. Depends on how you want that set up.
Do a search for thread, you said.
Mhm.
And then senders. Because that's just the repeating group, and then the cell content is the message content, right? That should be.
Yeah, from what I'm understanding, that repeating group right there, that's basically just where the messages are, correct? In like chronological order.
That's like their dashboard. So when they log in to see messages, it should all appear there. See, that's the thing. Right now they're appearing here, which is what was sent to them. But now they're not appearing. Like if I click, it should, I mean, this is all the same, but it should bring it up where I can see the message.
Yep. So current sales message. And the good thing with Bubble, I guess, is there are a handful of ways to do one thing. There's never just a right way. Although I mean, there is, but the way that I would have that data sent, so when we click on that cell on the left-hand side, I would more than likely use a custom state. And so in using a custom state, what we'd say is when this current cell is clicked, a custom state equals whatever value we want, a yes, no, an integer, whatever we want to say. But then the conditional on the other repeating group where the actual messages should show up, we would set a conditional where it says when whatever state is whatever we set, then the data changes, the source of the data changes. So before we add any conditional, go and scroll, or you see where it says select a property to change when true. Go ahead and click that. And then what we're looking for is we're trying to change the data. Now, oh, sorry, we've selected the current text cell. We're trying to select the repeating group.
Oh, the repeating group, this one.
Yep. So data source.
Data.
And then we'll change the current data source to whatever cell we had selected on the left-hand side.
Current threads user. Nope. So messaging repeating group thread, I guess. Yeah.
We just changed it to a thread, I think. So we're not going to want to have done that necessarily. So I'd Control Z just a little bit, go backwards.
Nope, don't do that.
You're going to have to click on the arrow going back in the right-hand corner, top right-hand corner for bubble.
Oh.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. You were at the right place. The right-hand side where that little redo
one?
button is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we should be fine there.
So this is the search for messages, type messages, current user, right?
That's,
Or
yeah, that is
message.
correct. We're trying to have it as the current user. Now, one of the things that we can do as well is we can see, it depends on how you want to approach the situation, because the page even could be set as a current user in this case. The page value rather. So if that makes any sense, you're able to set the type of content per page, and we could set it as a user or as a message or a thread. It really depends again on how you want to do it and how we're going to want to reference the information. I don't want to confuse you, so we can keep it as it is right now. So let me also ask you a clarifying question. When you had clicked on the cell in the past, did it automatically switch for the repeating group, or is this something that we're actively trying to accomplish?
It had, I think I copied with workflows and then I broke it.
Okay, cool. No
I
worries.
fiddled, and every time it's kind of like a roll of the dice always in Bubble. You're like, fix this, and then you break 5 more things in the process. It was one of those. I was like, this is easy to do. No, it's not.
Man, I get it. I do. I absolutely do. Okay, cool. Well, it's really not too difficult. And once we get it, you're going to see. But ultimately, all we're really trying to do is we're trying to set a custom state on the cell of the repeating group that we're clicking on.
Okay.
And so on the custom state for the thread, I should say. So on the left-hand side, when we click on something in particular over there, we want to set a state. But we want to have it unique to the cell, not the entire repeating group.
Okay, so this one.
One of the things that you can do, yeah, exactly. Click on this text. I was going to say like add a button that says go to or like an arrow, but clicking on the text is fine. So yeah, we'll add a custom state and we'll say clicked perhaps, just keep it simple, and that'll be a yes or no. Cool. And the default value will be a no.
Okay. And it's not a list, right?
No, it is not a list. Cool. And so when that's yes, so we'll then change the repeating group's data source. So not the text, but the repeating group itself.
Okay. So when nope.
We have to find that element. So we're looking for whatever that element's name is. I don't remember. I didn't look. You want to click on the current cells thread user first in the thread little.
Current cells.
Well, go ahead and just mouse over the text in the thread repeating group. And what's that called?
Text current cells thread.
Okay.
So.
And so what we're going to want to do then is we're going to find this repeating group itself. So when that thread's repeating group, whatever we called that. Repeating group
thread, I guess. Okay. So group. This repeating group thread.
Cool. List of threads. Let's do a list of threads. I think that's what we're going to do. Yeah, and since this is going to be a yes or no, and the way that the states are going to be set up, we should be able to have it to where the states are only one is a yes at a time. So let's do. We don't want to say each or first item. Let's do each item. Let's scroll all the way down. All the way down. We should be able to find that custom state.
It was just clicked.
Because we're trying to take the cell of it. I guess we do have to look at the, let's say first item. This isn't how we want to do it, but I do want to see if it at least shows us. And then scroll down and then convert the list link clicked. A little
Let me
weird.
just
Okay.
check this. It's
Well, we had changed the text though. That's the reason why.
yeah, but now that's why we did on the text. Yeah. So click is the custom state.
List of threads and then. Yeah, we do want to find that text. So perhaps the first item isn't correct. Repeating groups threads.
So maybe it's this just the message because that's the one that the custom state is on. So that's why I can't pull because it's text current. So, okay. So then.
Do you mind sharing real quick? I just want to take it for just a couple moments. I want to see what I can do if I'm given access.
Yeah. Remote control. Auto accept all requests, yes, or here you go. That's fine. I think.
Okay. So okay, it said to click. I should have control now, right?
Try and see. Oh wait here.
Huh.
Can you send a request to remote control?
That's weird. I clicked on it. Huh. Okay. Yeah, let me try that real quick.
Oh, it says you can. Okay, I'll stop moving.
Okay. Am I in control now?
I think so.
Does it say, are you seeing the mouse move around?
I am not. Are you seeing it move around there?
I'm seeing my mouse move around, but I'm not.
Because it says Cameron Bruce can control your screen.
Yeah, it does say I'm controlling. Not getting any response out of this though.
Stop remote control again.
Click to start the mouse keyboard control of the shared screen. Okay, cool.
I think it's because in my accessibility features, it's not letting me privacy unlock. Click the lock to make changes. Here we go. Because it's blocked in one of my. Okay, there we go. Now, third time's the charm. Let me restart that. Okay, you should be able to control now. There we go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's a little laggy, but no worries. Okay. Yes, so what we're trying to do here, we're taking this thread, we say with the current is first item, current user, that doesn't matter a whole lot. We're just looking, so this is thread text. This belongs to the current cell of repeating group thread. And so no, we wouldn't be doing that either because I'm setting a state. Was this the thread text right here?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess, okay, that's what I'm understanding. Okay, so there are the second way that we would do this, and I guess so we don't want to set a state necessarily. Although, I mean, there probably would be an elegant solution to this. But what we would do make changes to thing. And we would be doing current cells thread. And so this is a way to do it, at least for prototyping, at least for making sure that we can get it to work. So we're going to say that when we click it, instead of setting it as a custom state, now it's an item in the actual record of this object.
Okay.
So when it is clicked is yes. So we also need to ensure that in the future, we'll have more threads. We'll need to set a conditional. So when thread text is clicked and clicked equals yes, or, and then thread text is clicked and thread text is no, clicked is no. And the reason why is because we only want to display one message at a time in this case, and this is going to be with the use of that record clicked equals yes or no. Now, what we're going to do now is we are going to do a search. We actually probably don't need a conditional. We're really just doing a search for where this message or the thread of this message. Let's do. Actually, yes. So we're changing the thread here, and then okay. So yeah, this should make sense.
Equals yes, I guess.
Okay, not perfect.
Maybe first or last item, so then it will retrieve the last message.
Yeah, so what we're doing here is we're changing the data source of the messages to where the messages include a thread inside its record, where that thread then is a yes. And this would be the first item just because we're looking for the first item, or we're looking for the first thread that has a yes. Now, we will set up some conditional logic to where when we click it and it's a no, that it's a yes. And when we click another one where there is a yes, that becomes a no. And so it will only look at the first item all of like 100% of the time because there will only be one record that has a clicked equals yes. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Basically, we'll set it up to a point. And again, this is really just like a proof of concept to make sure that we can get it to work. But there shouldn't be any kind of information here present. And I'm wondering if we click here.
Could it be that also you need to run it as a user? Oh, there we go.
So
something. The thing is, why is it? Oh, I think it's because of the username is what it's displaying. There's no preview of the message. Yeah, because it's first member's name, just showing who it is. So maybe it needs to be first member's name and like the preview of the message if possible.
Current sales first items. And then we can do, let's say,
message content. We can just do it where it cuts it off. So cut off content if it's.
Yeah, at least for this, it'll probably be pretty ugly, but actually. It didn't update. What? Oh, okay.
I think it's because maybe it's current cell and then we put current user. So see current cells threads user, and then the other is, yeah, thread user messages. Yeah. No, there we go, cutting it.
Well, it's not even showing what we updated it to though, so.
Oh, maybe we need to refresh, yeah, the page, because it said it was updated. Oh, no.
Oh, because we have a conditional where the text is being changed. Otherwise, the text that should show up would be this. So this would be trial 2 if we click on it, right?
Yeah. No, it's not pulling any of it. Maybe because of that conditional.
Yeah, I'm thinking the real reason that's not or showing any new update is because all of the threads now. Well, the threads have yes clicked here. We haven't set anything to where it would show that it's a no. So what we're gonna do, let's see, we're gonna go ahead and reset all of these real quick. Now, again, this is just like a proof of concept. This isn't exactly the way that I would do it because we still need to set up where there would be conditionals where when it's clicked and it's yes, that it switches to no, and when it's no, it switches to yes, right? Right now, it's just to like, if it's clicked, it's gonna be yes, and it's gonna be yes forever, and we just don't want that to happen.
And it's more like if another one is yes, it should be no.
Yeah, basically there should be one yes at any given time. But now that we have these records at least there, this should show content where it was trial, I think, or something. Current sales thread. Content trial 2. Okay, let's see if this works. So what I said is that we're going to be taking the index of this, and we're going to be making it to where the index of this shows, or rather this content shows the index of that. And maybe that makes sense. Maybe it doesn't, probably doesn't, but hopefully this actually works. So we have it clicked. Still showing that.
Maybe if there's just a space between, since bubble's so literal, a space between the name and then the content.
Item number.
Because it's saying it's empty.
Current cell index is 2. So we're looking for items, current sales threads user. Okay. Well, what it comes down to is making sure that the cell that we're clicking on is passing, pardon me, is passing in its value to this. Let me think real quick. Give me just a handful of seconds. Because states would probably be the most effective.
And we couldn't do it if it was just a more like simple of like, if that is clicked, display, like when that having the click display it, like maybe it is a button or the profile picture, and when clicked, current sales messages.
Yeah, so when you do a clicked, in this case, it's only looking for the clicked action. So for that millisecond that your mouse is down, it's looking for that. So as soon as you unclick, as soon as you're not actively clicking, then that condition, exactly. So that's the downside with using clicked. It makes sense in some instances, but yeah, in others, not the best, but
Unless
So-
it's like a button and then the button causes a workflow.
Mhm. Well, if you don't mind, what I want to do here, and of course, you can always change this. I just want to draw a button here and say,
Yeah. About to say, yeah, even if it's just like an icon, like a plus, and then that click makes a workflow where it shows up. Can I just read more? Yeah.
this is going to be button C. So yeah, we should be able to do it from right here where the conditionals. Bless. Whew. Okay, the reason that we're not able to see it is because it is occupying a different repeating group here, which sort of stings. Because it does, it's not anywhere else. Uh-oh, I did not mean to press that button.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. Darn. Okay, so we can't look inside this repeating group, and we can't reference anything from inside this repeating group like that button click at very least. So I'm trying to think.
If we did it as a workflow.
Yeah, if we're not doing custom states, then
I mean, it's a little bit laggier, but
yep. So this would be the same thing that we had basically set up where the thread text is clicked and it's going to make a change to the actual thread where then clicked is yes. And then we can also, well, for testing, it's not the biggest deal. So we'll do current sales thread is clicked equals yes. Okay, that's very interesting. In theory, this should work because what we're doing is we're looking for that repeating group with that equals yes. We did change it. I forgot. We did delete that. So that says test now. And if we actually click on this, current cell text. I was hoping we'd be able to see more in here where the created thread is, where I actually had, oh yeah, created, well, we have the created by, this just shows the user.
yeah. Oh, messages.
Trial too. And I guess my last here thing that I'd be thinking of is that for some reason it's not being sorted correctly. Just for threads, first item. Although I guess we'd want to sort that one instead. But yeah, this is at least the sort of the direction that I would head. I'd have to experiment and play with this more. But the idea here is that when you click this, it looks at this record and says, oh, this is the record that I want to display. And it's able to do so based on the conditional set in this repeating group where it's looking for that thread, if that makes any sense. I do think that we're running into a sorting issue with the way that it's actually currently looking at the how Bubble's currently looking at the threads versus messages. But at the very least, this is the direction that I want to send you off on. I don't want to, because this is, to me, the best way to do it. I wish I had an actual answer I could like smash it out for you real quick.
And the button doesn't do anything right now.
We're not
What
going to be
we
able to.
set up.
Yeah, and I could remove that for you. You could always, of course, have it like a workflow, very similar to this in this case, the way that the text is set up.
Yeah.
So depends on how you wanted to go about that. You could even have a group behind here. So if anything in that group is clicked, then it would start that workflow. Yeah. Pretty interesting as to why it's not showing up. Again, I do believe it to be a sorting thing more than anything else, because conditionally and like logically, it makes sense. If this thread is clicked, then we're going to display that thread that's clicked, its content inside this message or inside this message.
Wait, is it, can we check the conditional of the current cells messages real quick?
Yeah, so up here.
I think maybe that's it. We never set it up on displaying it there, right?
Well, we wouldn't really need to actually, because the way that this works is it's looking at its parent group or the current cell, rather, message content. And then this only displays threads that are clicked.
Okay.
So I'll get rid of this for you, but this is at the very least the way that you would want to have it set up. Yes.
Okay.
Wish I had a more
go in and
definitive
play
answer
with
for you.
users and have like more of a back and forth conversation in the threads and messages to see if that like actually does anything different. Because right now it's just a bunch of U's and total U's. It's hard to see like what actually, and that's the problem of like when I create taste data, I'm like, wait, but why isn't this working? And sometimes it's just the data that it's pulling.
I identify with that, definitely. I definitely do. I tend to smash my keyboard, so I'm just like, I don't know where I'm at and what message is most recent.
Exactly.
I get it. I get it.
Check these real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that might be it. Nope. I just need to delete that. Oh, because that's what I had before. I think that's how I had it actually displaying before, is just thread text is clicked. It was just a condition. It was just a workflow in the back.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I like that. It is a little bit more elegant than what I was going through for sure.
And then here, oh, that's just created enough. I can fix that. And I can fix that. Yeah. Okay. I'll play around with it. I might see if that is more. Yeah. If current cells is clicked is yes. No. That should work though.
Well, this is the data that we're trying to display. So what we've set right here looks like a conditional. So the data display would be current cells threads message content, I guess, or something like that, right?
Yeah, so it's a message. Oh, crap. I don't know if it has message. And maybe we could just say only when current cells thread is yes. No, because it's not even offering option. Oh. No. Oh, something happened.
Well, we also have that conditional set that's probably overriding where we're searching for a thread. Whereas if we go back into that repeating group where I set up that conditional, we'll remove that.
This one?
No, so click on the repeating group where the messages are.
Oh, this one.
Yep, and then go to the appearance. And then the search for messages, we'll just remove thread. And then also, I still do believe that in our workflow, we have it to where.
Oh, there we go. But I think it's actually.
Is that showing everything?
All of them. Yeah. Not separate. So maybe it needs to, in here, constrained by user and only sender and user that match.
Real quick, how is in your record database, your thread, do you have a list of messages by any chance? for the thread. So we only have click, sender, and user. For the thread of message, or for the threads, I would add a list, a data type messages, and messages would be a list. And so after each message is sent, we add it to the thread. So that way, when we're referencing a thread, we're able to reference the thread's messages.
Okay, why won't you show me? Messages and then list, right?
Yep.
Okay. And actually, I think in this one, these were all the ones that I sent through that specific user when I was testing the pop-up. So I think that's actually correct. The only thing is it's not switching. Let it refresh. So it's not switching in between.
In the
messages, but
workflow that, well, in the workflow that we set up, we did set like both the state and then that workflow to change the clicked equals yes. So it might just be showing everything that's clicked yes potentially, or where we do a make changes to thread. So yeah, we can get rid of that for now if we're going to be doing display data in group thread. And then we would want to still set a conditional on that repeating group, the message repeating group, to where we're looking for. Because right now it's just searching for all messages belonging to a current user. So we want to search all messages belonging to a current thread. And then the thread is the thread is determined by what we click over in the other repeating group. And so that's initially why I had that back in workflow where it said clicked equals yes.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
So then, yeah, so then click. Nope. And actually, you can still control my screen. I might just let you do that.
Okay. So do a search for the thread. It's what we just deleted, really, with a thread would equal clicked. And so now it's all about just making sure that when we click that repeating group on the left, that we're clicking the right repeating group on the left. If basically we're clicking the right thread, that's what we're looking for. We would make this selected or set to first item, because again, we really only want one item or one thread to ever have the yes in it. And that will always be the first item. But yeah, so this is how we'd set it up. And the issue that we ran into is just making sure that when we click on this, it sets the right thread. I do believe, honestly, the reason that we're running into some issue is just the way that it was sorted. Like I said, it's gonna be something you're probably gonna want to have a go with yourself, just dealing with the way that everything is sorting. But
yeah,
we'll go ahead and refresh this at least. We'll inspect it and we'll see what's showing up. So this is looking for test now. We go to threads, app data. So we have a couple different right now set to clicked equals yes. I'm just seeing if I update it, if it changes on the back end. Okay, so this guy here, this is the only one that has selected yes. This is a thread with this unique ID. So we're going to go to our messages. And another reason this might not be working the way we want to is because we have at least some messages created without threads.
oh yeah, that's true. I need to delete all that. I need to wipe all of it.
So this is the message content. So it is working the way we want it to, at the very least. Now, the only thing that we have to do is set where when this is clicked yes, and this is then clicked, then this turns to no, and this turns to yes. So that's
Can
the
I do
only
that with
little
a
bit.
conditional, or I have to do that as a set state?
You can do it as well, in the backend workflow is really where you're going to want to do it. However, trying to think, you could probably use a combination of states and a backend workflow where when the state of this equals yes, only this condition is allowed. If that makes sense.
Sorry, my doorbell rang. If I was just to do it in workflows in the backend workflow, because I'm more comfortable with that set states just really don't jive with me.
Sure.
So then if it's a yes, then it's a no.
I'm trying to think about the best way. What would the best way to do this be? Probably states. I'm trying to think, because if we're passing a state from a current or repeating group, a cell.
And it wouldn't be able to be a conditional that if this is yes, then this is no. And then if this is no, it can be yes. Kind of like when you change displays, like if this is visible, the other one isn't.
Yeah, you'll be able to do a search for when. So you could say do a search for any of the threads is yes, and then you could say you can then make that a no, like on click. So make changes to thing. Do a search for all threads. Where clicked.
Sorry.
Is there any way to make this bigger? Are we cursed?
Yeah, I don't know what's happening there. It's really odd.
So we're changing this and we're saying we're now changing this to be where clicked equals no. So before we even set this current cell, we're saying search for the previous one where it is yes, and then change it to no. Okay, cool. Now this should work in theory, fingers crossed. So we'll click on this guy. Some data loaded test now. Okay, cool. Let's go back to our backend workflow. Or not our back, I'm sorry, our data is what I mean. We can see that clicked is no. Hopefully this extends to all of them. We should only have one with yes. So this guy does have a yes. Perfect, right?
Yeah. Look at that.
And then that guy changed. That guy's there.
Yeah. Now I'm never going to touch it again, so it doesn't break.
I can't blame you one bit. And then cool. So there we go. Perfect.
Look at that. Just mastery of the minds. Thank you so much for hanging on. And if anyone else is on the call, thanks for seeing it through.
Yeah, everyone took off. So I was able to dedicate a little more time for you. Yeah, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. You'd run into an issue with this if wait, no, we have the conditional set for the current user. So no, never mind. I apologize. Yeah, you shouldn't run into any issues with this. I do think though, when you start scaling and you have tens of thousands of messages, it might get a little sluggish for you. Whereas with states, it probably wouldn't be as sluggish. But for a more, well, for something that works, this will work is basically what I'm getting at. So,
okay. And then it's okay because I'm looking for, I don't want product to be able to just message user, but users should be able to message product. And so basically the way that it's set up, it should work that way, right?
I mean, you know your app a little bit more intimately than myself, but from what I'm understanding, it's looking for the current user. What I might do instead is where you're a current user, and it's also you're a member equals yes, or a hotel equals yes, depending on how you want to set it up.
Okay, I'll look that a little bit more in depth. Yeah, because I mean, the hotels will have their portal where they can receive messages, but they have to receive a message first before talking to the member.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Like the member has to initiate it is my point of like, then they should be able to, and I just need to basically copy with all of the workflows as is to put it on the hotel dashboard, which is a different dashboard than the one we're looking at.
Gotcha. Okay. Makes sense to me. Well, sweet. I'm glad I got to at least get this taken care of for you. We handled a couple different things. So heck
Thank
yeah.
you so much. And I have one question. We're not going to look at it because it's been a lot, I know. But if I wanted to create a PDF download, what would be the best like plugin to where then like it creates an API workflow, emails them the PDF of what's on the screen?
So you're looking for a way to email people a PDF.
Yes. So basically I want just
Here, I'm going to give you control of your computer again.
I think. Okay. So basically, these are like the profiles that it makes. So I want it to where the user of like the product profile or the person who owns this profile can just email themselves a PDF exactly like this of the data that's there. So basically just a copy like this in PDF form.
So you're looking to take a picture, like basically like a screenshot of the computer or of the screen. So there is a plugin called Bubble was it Bubble Page to PDF, I think. Very specific. Let me see if I can find it for you real quick.
But I can look at plugins here.
Bubble Page to PDF converter. So this page to PDF converter should do exactly what you're looking to do, where it takes that image or it takes that bubble page and then exports it as a PDF.
Okay, perfect. So PDF
Sweet.
convert. Perfect. Okay.
I would look at the documentation before you commit to buying or subscribing, but that should do exactly what you want it to do.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because there was like a PDF download thing, but that one never, this one, the conjugar, the create, but I didn't know, and I have that one, but I don't know if it's as good. Probably the other one is better. Zero Code is really good, so they know what they're doing.
They do. Perfect. Well, Alexandra, I just want to say thanks again for sticking in. Glad we got these things solved, but with that said, I do want to wrap up Bubble Office Hours. I want to say anybody that is watching, thank you for watching. It has been lengthy, but at least we were able to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish. Now we are going to make our way into, they say bubbles after dark, bubble after office hours, where if you have a private project or something you don't feel comfortable with sharing actually in office hours, you can basically join us. We turn off sharing and we'll make it to where it's private. So members only sign up for Pro NoCoders and you will be allowed in our office or after office hours. But okay, cool. With that said, I'm going to be signing out and you guys have a good one.